I mean, there's a lot going on, and I don't even know if I answered your question now. So,
You did, you definitely did. Yeah, like the viral underclass is definitely ignoring people who may have situations where they are unable to become, you equals you in the same amount of time as someone who has access to care. They may live in a city where they have a lot of resources to get around, and in some places where they don't. Or, I think fear a lot of times too, the fear of coming out, letting people know that, hey, I have HIV and I got it through having sex with a guy and I am a guy and no one knows that I'm gay. So that too can lead to people not getting into care and creating that viral underclass.
well, technically, Lawrence, there's laws in the Michigan legislature, that are on the books that we could be criminalized potentially for the sex that we have. And they're not
Mm,
going to go after Miss Susie Christian, who's, having anal sex with her husband. No, they're going to go after the gay guys. So
mm,
there's so much to this. And since we're talking about Sero being a sponsor,
mm-hmm.
we have, we're talking about the viral underclass, but the viral underclass are those people who are just not connected to care because they don't know where to get the care, or they might be like me, like back in the early 2000s, and just be complete denial about getting tested and going in for it and
Absolutely.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. So we can't, and they want to take away our funding. We can't negate the possibility that we're all at risk of losing this because of what's happening in the federal government right now. There's a lot of
Absolutely.
stuff. I don't want to be Debbie Downer about it, but
Mm-hmm.
we can't be saying that, oh, these people are using drugs, they need to be locked up. Yeah, they probably do need to be locked up to a certain extent, but we can't just be criminalizing things because this virus is a systemic result of systemic racism, of systemic homophobia, systemic transmisia, which is transphobia for those who don't know what transmisia is, where they are going after all of us who are openly gay or openly HIV positive. They don't care who we are. They just see a bunch of numbers that we cost them a lot of money for insurance, or we cost them this and cost them that. But something, the president's known to have extramarital affairs where he's paying these high dollar call girls over $10,000 just for one date. So I mean, even the president himself could potentially have HIV the for doing what he's been doing. But they don't talk about things like that. And we would never know if he did because he wouldn't tell us if he did or if he didn't. And they're not going after people like that. They're going after black and brown people, black indigenous people of color. Right now, they're starting to lock up Latinos. They could be, because they're demonizing Latinos migrating to this country. So therefore, they're going to demonize the Latinos who have been living in this country long before any white settler stepped foot into this country.
Hmm.
So we have to think about this type of stuff, and it's just the way life is. And I honestly don't know how to fight all this stuff because I honestly don't know how to fight something that's been here since before we were even born.
Well, I think that your voice and you speaking up is a start.
Right.
You know, you've educated me about a couple of things just in this conversation here, and I've talked to you several times. And, so I think that, educating our community is definitely a step in the right direction. We've learned that from Cyril as well. That educating the community is a part of our advocacy in HINAC. HIV is not a crime advocacy and ending the HIV epidemic. So I think off to a great start, and it's raining.
And we also have to don't forget Elizabeth Taylor because she did have
Absolutely.
create the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, and I am a Council of Justice leader with the foundation. And all I really know about her is that she was an actor, and she went through some tough times, and she knew gay people because a lot of gay celebrities back in the 80s started to die of AIDS related complications. And I can name Mr. Brady from the Brady Bunch, or
Okay.
we can name Rock Hudson and
Yes.
things like that. I mean, this was all in the news back there. I remember watching it on the TV channels I used to get back then. They
Hmm.
tried to warn us, that this was out there, but they did it with all scare tactics.
Hmm. Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
how the media portrays it, anyways. I'm not saying Elizabeth Taylor. I mean, this is her legacy of doing something beyond the acting.
Right.
is to end AIDS, not in just the United States, but across the world. And the
across the
Sero
world.
Project is worldwide now too. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I know you probably never thought, that you would be talking to people about your story like this on, platforms and like how does that make you feel, honestly? Like how do you feel about that?
it depends on the day, to be honest, because
Okay.
there is a part of me that wants to just be like everybody else and just live a normal life, which I am to the best of my ability. After spending 5 years in the joint, with people who were actual murderers and stuff and rapists and everything else. So, and perpetual like criminals because they just get caught up in the hype, of the criminal lifestyle. And a lot
Yeah,
of them are fathers, too. So, and women in prison are mothers. So we can't negate that fact that this virus goes beyond just locking people up. It affects families.
I know how it is like when you have your diagnosis and then that's a whole life-changing experience right there. I can only imagine having this experience coupled with that. Like was that also of that magnitude to be as life-changing for you?
Well, a part of me knew I would be somehow involved in changing the Michigan law, and I was a small part of that. There are other people who did speak out about what happened to them under the old HIV law here in Michigan. So, but the issue I think we're having right now is we do need to frame this as something other than an LGBTQ issue because it goes beyond our community. It affects all types of different people, as you know, because we met those type of people at High Net.
Absolutely. How has this affected your family or your friends? I know you and your mom have a really close relationship. Has this affected you all, like where you are, where you live, where you go out just to enjoy yourselves? Like, has this affected you since
It
then,
affects
since
me on
2013?
it affects me because I'm kind of scared of moving out of this county where I found myself safe in the past few years
Oh wow.
because I know if I do go out into a different community, it might affect my life differently, but I have to move on just like everybody else has. And I
Absolutely.
have made, meeting Robert and others from Cerro has grounded me that we do have the power. We just have to educate people and get others on board with our mission, which is to end AIDS.
Yes. Robert is amazing.
And we have to do that in a way where we're not criminalizing people for being positive and making an error in judgment because it's not like we're all time going out, not disclosing our status, but it does happen because it's just how life rolls sometimes.
That's true. That's true.
I mean,
So,
sometimes people don't even want to know our names, so why should I have to tell them my HIV status when they don't even want to know what my first name is? So
that is so true. That is so true, baby. All right, Mr. Jeremy. Well, you've turned your experience into advocacy. What changes do you want to see in Michigan law, and what's your message to others here in Michigan and across the United States who may be afraid to speak out or even get tested?
well, something like since politics usually becomes like a red or blue type thing with the independents somewhere in between, I want to mention that the great Republic of Texas was the first state to reform their. Well, they took it off HIV specific laws off the books. That doesn't mean people aren't going to be criminalized. That just means they don't have that added stigma when someone goes into the courtroom. Yeah, when they find out about your status, they might charge you with something like attempted murder or some of the things that people have been, I've seen in the headlines. It's just prosecutors will use whatever's at their disposal to put someone, lock them up
Hmm,
because those are just numbers, where our system of policing people in this country does stem from the southern states, from
hmm,
how they police black people who ran off from the plantation.
mhm.
So I don't see it any different than how we criminalize people than what they were doing in 1896 or 1876 or whatever, because
Wow.
they're just locking people up.
Hmm.
And as the president has exemplified, they're not locking up the white rich people. They're locking up people who don't have that type of money to keep on fighting, keep on fighting, keep on fighting, and just with and they are using scare tactics to lock people up. And it's just a
Yes.
number so that they can tell the taxpayers that they're reducing crime when crime just continually perpetuates itself because it's a systemic issue. And they're not doing anything to stop the systemic issues because people don't want to concern themselves with things that don't involve them. That's my take on how people act with advocacy. Maybe I'm not answering your question again.
You did, Mr. Jeremy. You did. You answered it and then some, and then some. Is there anything that you would like to leave with the audience, with your fellow Michiganders, with your fellow people living with HIV, to our allies? Is there anything you would like to say that you would like to leave us with? Take your time.
It's time to wake up, Michiganders, and it's time to wake up the United States of America because the way things are going, we are losing our super status power within the world. So
Hmm.
there are a lot of things we do need to take care of here in this country, but we can't negate our fellow brothers across these borders, whether it's Canada or whether it's Mexico or deeper south into Latin America or South America. We can't negate what's going on because we've been funding wars since I was born. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of trauma that's gone on since as a society since I was born, and this goes predates us. So we got to wake up to what's really going on, and that involves shutting off sometimes the media devices, and especially the TV, because they're not informing us the way we want to be informed. They are just telling us a story to cause us panic when we go to the voting booth. And midterm elections are next year, so this is a perfect time to become involved in fighting something that will have a greater impact beyond our family and ourselves.
All right, Mr. Jeremy. Well, thank you for your final thoughtful, encouraging words. All right, Mr. Jeremy. Well, again, I want to thank you for your openness and for shedding light on what's really at stake when it comes to HIV criminalization. Stories like yours remind us that the fight for HIV justice is also a fight for truth, science, and dignity. For more conversations like this, follow Details at 11 Media on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.